Hello and welcome to this Joy of Adventure Teachers and Managers Duke of Edinburgh Award information session. We hope that you will find it useful, and if you've got any questions at the end, please do email us at dov@joyofadventure.co.uk. So my name's Joy Martin. I trained as a science teacher to start with, and in my first school, the head said to me, "Hey Joy, do you fancy running DofE for us?" And I just thought it was a great idea. So I knew nothing about it. I was still young enough to be able to do my gold myself. So I ran the scheme in school and I did my gold. And basically, for the last 30 odd years, I've been working with young people in the outdoors, and for the last 10, running Duke of Edinburgh's award. So I've got lots of qualifications. I've a British Canoe Union sea kayak and whitewater and open boat coach. I'm a mountain leader, and I also run the Apply First Aid, which is a first aid organisation which runs mainly the outdoor first aid qualifications. I do it because I love it. If you look on our Joy of Adventure Facebook page, you'll see adventures that we do in our off season. And my aim is definitely to get people enjoying and being confident to move in the outdoors. I do a lot of work with Rod White. Rod White is based up in North Wales. He's a level 5 canoe coach. He's also a mountain guide. He used to be deputy head of an outdoor centre in North Wales until, of course, the outdoor centres were shut down. And he joins us over here in Cambridgeshire for our local expeditions, and then obviously runs them with us in Scotland and in Sweden. So I set up Joy of Adventure 10 years ago now, just at the time when Duke of Edinburgh's award was realising that teachers in schools didn't have the time, and maybe in Cambridgeshire certainly the qualifications necessary to be able to run expeditions. So I really wasn't that keen on setting up a business. I just wanted to support schools in running expeditions. But as you know, Duke of Edinburgh's award say that we have to become an approved activity provider if we're going to run expeditions. So set up Joy of Adventure, and as a result of that, became an approved activity provider for Duke of Edinburgh's award. We've also got lots of other tickets, as it were. So we've got our ALA license. Both Rod and I are accredited practitioners for the Institute of Outdoor Learning. We also provide personal performance awards for British canoeing, so that anyone who does their awards with us is able to get their British Canoe Union qualifications. It used to be their 1 and 2 star, and last summer we also provided a 5-day residential, which enabled people to get some of their paddle sports awards. ITC is the organisation through whom we run our first aid qualifications. They're kind of our qualifying awarding body, and we run our outdoor qualifications through them. So that hopefully gives you a bit of a background about who we are and what we are. Both Rod and I are teachers. Our goal is definitely to inspire young people to go on a journey. We want them to enjoy it. We want this to be the first of many expeditions they go on. And certainly at the moment, we're really keen that the expeditions are safe, they're secure, but they're also social, that young people can get outside and have a really, really good time. Some of the colleges and schools that we've worked with, so we've done a lot of work with Cambridge Academic Partnership, Hills Road Sixth Form College, Netherhall, Kesgrove in Ipswich, St Bede's, Bottersham, Comberton, IBC. We've also worked with a lot of Scouts, and also the Cambridge University PGCE students. So we are mainly the expeditions that we run are open. So whether it's bronze, silver or gold, they're open expeditions, but we also work specifically with a few schools. I like the relationship I gain with the staff. I'm always really keen to give the staff a really good time and to give them to increase their skills, both in paddle sports and in camping. So 2021, who knows what this year is going to hold. We aim to run both open and closed canoe expeditions. We have got dates in for bronze, silver and gold canoeing expeditions, and our aim is to run them in both East Anglia. So we've got some great rivers that we use here, the River Wissey, the River Little Ouse and the Great Ouse. And then for gold assess, we come down from Erith, and silver assess, we come down from Bedford. Wales for gold, on the River Severn, which is a superb river. and then in Scotland, we're aiming to run a trip up there. The weather is good on the River Spey, if not on the Great Glen. And then as last year's trip to Sweden was cancelled, we're also planning a trip to Sweden. So there are the expeditions that we're hoping to run in 2021. Of course, COVID is a big issue at the moment. We ran last year successful COVID expeditions. And so I just want to explain to you how we managed to do that. Delighted that we got the We're Good to Go kite mark. That's enabled us to use this symbol. So it's a Visit England kite mark, and we achieved that last year. How do we make our expeditions safe? So we've got our paddles are all numbered, our buoyancy aids are all numbered so that students have their own buoyancy aids and their own paddles. The boats are all numbered, so we aim that students choose whether they sit in the front of the boat or the back of the boat. That's normally dependent on their weight, and then they then stay in those seats. And the seats are actually, for us, luckily, 2 meters apart, which means that while they're on the boats, they are very safe. And as you're all very aware now, once you're in the outdoors, the risk of COVID is significantly less. All our camping has been social distance. So you can see in this photo that we put ropes out. So when we were doing it in the summer, we had groups of 6 because that's what the government guidelines was. Everyone had their own barrel, and we placed the barrels out in the campsite so that students then placed their tents where we put the barrels, which meant they were at least 2 meters apart. All the camping was individual. That was a challenge for some people to start with. I think maybe for some parents who were worried about that. But the reality is we're on the campsites, or we're close to the campsites. I think the key for us was facilitating students putting their own tents up or working together to put their tents up. And if that was the case, they then had masks on because they were often closer than 2 meters. Individual cooking, so it was a change from what we would normally do for our D&E expeditions, but actually it did mean that they developed both cooking and camping skills that maybe sometimes those who aren't so good at rely on others on expedition to do it for them. We also had a hand washing kit that each person brought, so they had their own washing up bowl or hand wash bowl, they had their own soap, they had their own hand gel, and of course their own toilet paper. This was kind of the summary of our risk assessment. Really happy to send to people our COVID risk assessment if that helps. So personal tent, camping equipment and cooking equipment, individual food, labelled hand gel. I was just really aware that there would be lots of hand gel around. If it was labelled, they wouldn't lose it. 1 mask per day for expedition. That was really only if they got close enough to need to be close, if there was a first aid incident or if they were helping someone put up their tent. Soap in a container, a plastic bowl, large mouth water containers. That's because we fill up the containers from big containers that we've got, and it's much easier if they're large. And normally we would have given students maps and mark pens, but again, it was just to reduce that risk. So now we will send students a PDF of them routes, which they're then able to use, but they do need to then get those laminated. So that was the basis of our risk assessment. If teachers and managers want to see it, really happy to send it. Grove Adventure have 4 respects. So we have which kind of underpin all that we do. I'm not really a rules person, but I do think respect is important. So we aim that students respect themselves, of course, and that applies to their food, that applies to their kit. If if students are well fed and warm, then they'll be happy and they'll enjoy it. So we stress respect yourself. We stress respect others. So whether it's others in your group, whether it's us as staff, whether it's the campsites that we're on. So all the campsites that we use, or most of them, are farmers' fields that we have got permission to camp on. So certainly at the moment, that really reduces the risk of transmission to other people or to them. And then also the boats that people go by, so the community of people that live on the river. Respect for equipment, whether it's our equipment, so not dragging boats, not sitting on buoyancy aids, not sitting on barrels, but also equipment that's borrowed. When they borrow equipment from each other or from parents, trying to get them to respect it and to value that equipment to us is really important. Respect of the environment, really keen that students think through the impact of the environment You can tell this is live. Respect to the environment. So really keen not to have single-use plastic bottles. Really keen they don't bring single-use plastic sandwiches or Oso oats or any of those things that come in single use. Tried before COVID to think about the transport they were using to get somewhere so that they could share transport. That's a bit more difficult now. But lots of students do litter picking coming down the river and have collected all sorts of amazing things out of the river, which we then recycle for them. This year we've got a number of expedition options. So training and practice expeditions for both bronze, silver and gold. We're hoping to run those at Easter. If we can't run them at Easter, then we will run them as soon as we can and just move the other expeditions forward. So all the training and all the practice is going to happen on the Little Ouse. Those who've done expeditions with us before are going to start up at Thetford so they can get an experience of going on moving water. So there's moving water between Thetford and Brandon, which means that we can teach them breaking in and breaking out skills. Staff who want to join us on any of these training sessions are really, really welcome. If you want to develop your own skills, really happy for you to do that. Our assessed expeditions, we've got 4 options at the moment. So we've got the East Anglia rivers, the 3 rivers, 3 counties. So they start either near Bedford or start at Erith and then come down. So it's you get Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Norfolk in that on that expedition. The River Severn is a fantastic river coming down through the Welsh borders. You start up in Wales and then it wiggles down through Shrewsbury. Scotland, River Spey, one of the classic canoe rivers, absolutely beautiful, starting in the mountains, or if the river's too high, the Great Glen. And then Sweden, so the Harken River is a beautiful, beautiful river, and then it goes into a lake system. So that's our 4th option. We've still got 6 places left on that option. So before expedition, we start expedition training, and thanks to Zoom, we're now able to do that all online. So we will start expedition training as soon as people have signed up, and we'll do the route planning. So we explain using eD. We've now done we've now got our own YouTube video, YouTube channel, Joy of Adventure Expeditions, where we explain to people how they can do their route planning and route cards on e-mapping on eD. And we've also done a worksheet to hopefully make that clear. So we do that with them. So from a school's point of view, we do all the administration that goes with the expeditions. And if the expedition needs a notification number, we put those in. So that's our route planning. We also are really pleased that British Canoe Union have given us permission to use their first aid training. So we've got online first aid training which students do before they come on expedition, and then we do the things that what they need to do when things go wrong if on expedition, and the likelihood of things. So they're more likely to get a cut than they are to need to give CPR to somebody. So we do the kind of practical things. We will talk through on Zoom what the expedition kit is that they need and what the equipment is. And again, we've done videos of this so that they can look back at those again and again, and we provide a kit list. So we provide all the expedition kit. So the boats, the barrels, the paddles, the buoyancy aids. Students need to bring their own personal equipment. We have got a few tents, but in general, we don't provide tents. We encourage students who are coming on open awards students to ask their school for tents and stoves. Just keen that if they do check them in advance. We had some people who did that last year, and the outer and inner and poles were all different, and they hadn't got the right gas and all those sorts of things, which you as managers and leaders, I'm sure, will be aware of. We do pre-expedition planning training with them. So again, we've done a number of YouTube videos so that people can see what our principles are, and also then give them ideas. We try not to be prescriptive, but we do want them to eat well, eat healthily, have thought about the cost, and to think about the environment, and to think about the number of calories. But that again is on our YouTube video, but we teach that through to people. The good thing about canoe expeditions in comparison to walking expeditions is that weight isn't an issue. So carrying tins is fine. And some people come up with some great menus. We've had steak and chips as well as some other fantastic food on expedition. You can see this person was doing a stir fry. That's always a good one, particularly if students bring a big wok with them. Um, we then, as part of our training, will talk about the expedition's aim and give them ideas for that. Always keen that that links in with what they're studying, but also is really practical so that they can easily do a presentation once they've completed their expedition. It's much more difficult for us to manage their presentations. So we normally encourage students to go back to their school and do that to you as their coordinator or their manager. One of the aims that we had, this was a group that finished on the River Severn. These lads were fantastic. You can see there they've got a wheelie, a shopping trolley, they've got a chair. They just collected so much rubbish coming down river and really enjoyed doing it. So it was a real success story for them. So option one is the gold training that starts at Hochwald. All our training, we do through at the start of each practice, we have a day's training. So those who are coming to Hochwald on the first one, this is the edge of the river there. It's a stunning river. It's a chalk stream, so it's really, really clear. And in the summer, very nice to swim in. That's my dog Poppy that you'll see there. And I've now got another one called Nala who will join us too, hopefully on expedition. So at the start of each of the practice expeditions, we do canoe training. This is Rod explaining to this group how to get into a boat and how a boat works on land first before they then let loose in the water. We then get them to develop their paddle skills so that on their first day, so no one needs to have paddled beforehand. And actually, if people aren't confident swimming, that's also fine. These boats are really, really steady. And you can see that everyone's wearing a buoyancy aid. We don't have many rules on Joy of Adventure expeditions, but one is that if you are on a boat or in a boat or next to the water, your buoyancy aid is on and it is done up. That just provides us with security and parents and teachers, no doubt, as well. So we teach them paddle skills. We'll talk about equipment and packing. So we've done a video on how to pack a boat and how to pack barrels, but we'll ensure that that happens on that first day. They will pack their barrels and their boats. We'll talk about stove safety and hygiene. Again, we've done a video on this, but that will be something that we stress just to make sure that they are safe. And then on that training day, the expedition camping skills. So putting up their tents, making sure they're putting them up securely, safely, and they know not to go in them with wet stuff on and all that kind of stuff that comes naturally if you've been camping a lot. So that's what happens on the training day, and wherever the training is, that will happen. So the first day for this first option, they canoe along the Little Ouse, which is a beautiful river. It's past the RSPB nature reserve, so there are cranes there, which is lovely, and they end up a Millennium Wood campsite. The good news with the Millennium Wood campsite is that it's got shelters, and they can also have fires. Currently it's only got one fire pit, but our aim is to create other fire pits so that each group, so if it's a group of 6, they can sit safely around a fire. Last year we had to have a rota of who sat around the fire because we obviously didn't want to have all students sitting around the fire at once, and I think that will then create a really nice atmosphere. On the next day, they go down the Great Ouse and they end up going up the River Wissey and they end up at Wissington. The issue with some of these rivers is if the wind's against you, or with you, if the wind's with you, then students are able to sail down, which lots of students last year had great fun doing. The wind's against you is really hard work. And that's sometimes therefore where we have to change the end location because the end point is dependent on the wind and they might never get there if the wind's really strong. Option 2 is the River Severn. Option 2, they would start doing their training on the edge of the River Severn. They would camp on the side of the River Severn, and then they then spend a few days going down the River Severn's a beautiful river. Due to COVID, we're not going to be running this as a training option because we don't think that between now and then students will be able to do that, but we are aiming to run that as an assessed option. So assessed options, we've got the option from Erith, which comes along the Old West River. That river used to flow west, it now flows east, which is just phenomenal. So they come, the first thing they do is they go through Hermitage Lock, and that lock can go down 4 meters in depth. And they start off in salt water and they end up in fresh water. So this was a group of goals that came through there last summer. They've got some great campsites at the edge of the River Ouse. So you can see this one, beautiful, just sitting next to the river and camped in a COVID safe way. On this one, they end up starting in Cambridgeshire, and they end up then in Norfolk at the top of the River Wissey, which is again beautiful. And they've got chalk flint villages that they can go and see for those who are interested in the difference in the churches between those rivers. Next option is the assessed on the River Severn, and the difference here is that you've got some moving water, which can be quite exciting. They'll start off at Montford Bridge, where again we will give them some training on that first day, just to kind of get their heads back around to moving water and manoeuvring as a group on a river. Then come down the River Severn, and they'll come through and camp at the campsite. The Isle campsite is actually part of the Tate and Isle estate, and the farmer there is really kindly allows DofE groups to camp. So you're right on the river. And it's stunning. I would have thought now, as I'm doing this film in the middle of February, it would probably all be covered with water. The River Severn comes up very high. The next day they go down through Shrewsbury Weir, and depending what the level of the water is, they may line the water as this guy here is doing. We have paddled it. If the water is really low or really, really high, then we have to portage it. The next day, they will then camp at Ismore National Trust campsite. On this campsite, students need to pay for and book that themselves. But what they can do is also book a fire pit and wood, which is great fun on the evenings. Next day, they'll go through a place called Jack's Rapids, and Jack's Rapids is quite an exciting bit of river, and then they will camp before then ending at Bewdley. And this was a group that I think the group from Bottisham, looking at that, who ended at Bewdley a year or two ago. Third option is Scotland. So Scotland on the River Spey, classic river, absolutely beautiful. You Google it and canoeing and you'll see it's one of the 4 rivers to do in Scotland. You start off in the mountains. This was me with Poppy when she was a bit younger, coming down the river. You campsite, so we get campsites again. You can wild camp in Scotland, but it's a bit more difficult when you've got a DofE group. So we will try and sort out campsites for you, but students will need to pay for those. River's lovely. This is a very typical River Spey. The only issue with us planning to do the River Spey is that if the water level is too high, then it would be too dangerous. And if that's the case, we would have to then move to the Great Glen. It's beautiful, it's stunning, and you start in the mountains and you end up then in the sea. So swimming all the way, which is great. Great Glen is the option if we can't do the Spey. And with that, you start near Fort William at a place called Gairlochie. And you then go up a whole load of locks, and then you go along the canal. It's an amazing engineering feat, the Grand Caledonian Canal, going right across from the west coast of Scotland across to the east coast. It's stunning. These canal sections link up the locks together, and one part of it you spend a whole day going down through Loch Ness. So it's a great journey. So it's not really, so lots of Gold DofE groups do it, but we're giving students the choice of either doing the River Spey if the weather's good enough or the levels are okay, if not Loch Ness. And it can all be done by train and buses in between. So we will encourage people to do that. So on this one, you end up in Inverness, and there's a whole load more of locks to come down through Inverness. So our final option is our assessed expedition in Sweden. We went 2 years ago to Storley. So the photos are of Storley, but this time we're going to the Harken River is our aim. The River Harken, beautiful 40 kilometers of Harken. We'd fly to Sweden, and then once we get there, as soon as we get there, the cost then includes all the transport. So you need to sort out, or students would need to sort out their own flights to get there. But once we're there, then we'll sort out the bus from the airport. And once you're there, you then buy your food. And then you'll camp at the start, at the start of it, and then you'll go off down. We will go off downriver from there. It's both the Lake Harken and the River Harken. You've got 40 kilometers of the river, so we will support you where the rapids are a bit tricky. And then on the lake system, you will be definitely on your own exploring that each day that you're on the lake. Sweden's got these fantastic huts and campfires that you can stay at each night, and that's all part of the fee that we charge. Evenings in Sweden, yeah, I've now been twice. Absolutely stunning. The skies are amazing, and the reflections are wonderful. So for all our expeditions, because we're personal performance award providers, we're able to students are able to get their Discover Award and their Start Award, and depending on how much they do, they can go on and get the next award on, or even to do their Paddle Sports Leaders Award. We're always really keen to train people, as well as training staff if staff want to be trained. So lots of photos on our Joy of Adventure Facebook page. So do have a look at that. That will give you a kind of flavour of the sort of things that we do. Expeditions that we're running also be 2021 open expeditions. We're running closed expeditions. We will be running expeditions, we hope, in East Anglia, Wales, Scotland and Sweden. Also keen to support alternative provision. So if you've got doing alternative provision in your school and want to work with us, or for us to work with you with the alternative provision, really keen to do that. If you've got any questions, always happy to answer questions. Really happy to have phone conversations with people. Normally I would go into schools and talk to students or staff and managers in schools. That's obviously more difficult now, but really keen to answer questions, have a Zoom conversation, talk with you about how we can support your students in schools. But just to re-emphasize, Joy of Adventure really does want to inspire young people, well, actually to inspire anyone, to get outdoors, to go on a journey, to have the skills that it begins then a lifetime of journeying. Hope this has been helpful. If you've got any questions, please do email us.